You have some people that have some questions for you.
I love that.
Mr. President, how you doing, Mr. President? We're live from Sturgis. Say hello to So the people have some questions for you, Mr. President. I want to bring in Brent. He was talking about he has his daughter, his grandchildren now living with him, and he says you're concerned about the economy. What is your question for the former president?
So, Mr. President, I appreciate you giving our time here. One of the big concerns is what are you going to do about bringing down the rent and things like that in the economy? Because out of 8 children that I'm a father and a stepfather to, 5 of them are struggling, and I'm giving them part of my income on a regular basis. How are you going to make the economy not just the the food and electricity, but bring down the rent prices, the housing prices, so that these kids can survive and without their parents' help?
Such a good question, Mr. President.
You're right. I hear it very well. And I tell you, first of all, I love the people that you're with. I know that I must have at least 99, perhaps 100% of all of them. And I think they're incredible. We are going to drill, baby, drill. We're going to bring down the cost of energy. Energy is what caused the worst inflation, I think, in the history of our country. Food prices are up 50%. Sometimes more. You look at bacon. Bacon is quadrupled. You can't order bacon. You can't order anything. We're living horribly. We have the worst inflation we've probably ever had in our country, and it started because of energy. We're going to drill, baby, drill, and then we're going to have China and all of these countries that were treating us good when I was there toward that. I mean, it took me a long time to get them to behave properly. All of these countries are going to, again, stop. Like 4 years ago, I could ask you, you were in great shape. You had low energy costs. You had low food costs. Everything was good. You could buy a house. You had low interest rates, 2% interest rates. You had gasoline at $1.87. Now it's $5. And by the way, going up very substantially. But you had gasoline at $1.87 a gallon. Nobody talks about that anymore. Nobody even can believe it's going to happen. It's going to happen again. We've got to get the energy prices down, and everything else is going to be tumbling down with it, the prices, because what Biden has done to the economy is so horrible, and what he's done to inflation in our country is just very destructive.
Donald Trump appeared on Fox and Friends this morning by telephone, and he did his first live interview since Kamala Harris picked Tim Walz as her vice presidential candidate. And in true Trump fashion, he completely shreds both Kamala Harris and nutty Tim Walz. But before we get to that, I want to show you this video from Megyn Kelly. And she talks about the Kamala Harris campaign and how it's basically saying nothing, which makes it easy for Donald Trump to tear apart. She doesn't have any information on her website. She doesn't talk about any platform that she's running on. All she talks about is basically baby removal and, of course, Transformers. Check this out from Megyn Kelly.
Tim Walz changed the Minnesota flag to look almost exactly like the Somali flag. I mean, it's a dead ringer for the flag of Somalia. It's got the highest population of Somalis than any other state in America. And you look at Kamala Harris's website, we noticed this the other day. Good luck finding an American flag on there. Good luck finding one policy. One. Nothing. You know what it is? It's LGBTQ pride merch. That's what's on her website. You go to the Trump website, it's covered in American flags. His motto is Make America Great Again. It's his campaign slogan. He's got his former Marine out there. They talk about America and their love of country at every turn. And so I do see this dividing pretty quickly into the pair that loves America and what it stands for, and the pair that doesn't.
But before we get to the Trump interview, I want to show you a couple clips regarding Tim Walz and how crazy he actually is. Check out this first clip where he's saying that everybody else is in people's business. It's not for the government to be in people's business, in their lives. But then Tim Walz is the actual person who wants to be all up in your biz.
Some of us in here are old enough to remember. I see you down there. I see those old white guys. Some of us are old enough to remember when it was Republicans who were talking about freedom. It turns out now What they meant was the government should be free to invade your doctor's office. In Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and their personal choices that they make.
Meanwhile...
Hello, you have reached the Department of Public Safety stay-at-home hotline. The information you leave is...
Okay, so what you're hearing right now from Mr. Freedom is a line, a hotline that he created in Minnesota where people could call in and snitch on their neighbors. Hey, yeah, this guy's across the street. He doesn't have a mask on. Can you come get him? Hey, there's a guy we're on lockdown. He's not supposed to be outside of his house, and he's outside in the yard playing basketball with his son. Can you come lock him up, please? He actually created a hotline where you could snitch on your neighbors.
Considered public information. At the tone, please leave the following information: your name, your callback number, how the stay-at-home order is being violated.
How is it being violated? Please tell us so we can come get these evil people right away. But, the government doesn't want to be up in your business.
And where the stay-at-home order was violated. Thank you.
Record your message at the tone. When you are finished, hang up or press pound for more options.
Can you believe that? Can you believe that the guy went on stage with his first speech since being named Kamala's vice presidential pick, and he's telling people that the government shouldn't be in your business? Meanwhile, does he not realize that this tape is out there? Unbelievable.
I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
You are not entitled to free speech. If the government deems what you're saying to be misinformation, you are no longer entitled to free speech. That is Tim Walz. That clip came out today, and it's a bombshell. I don't know who vetted Tim Walz, but just like with Kamala Harris, do they not realize all of this tape is out there? Do they not realize how damning this is for him? That this guy said he basically wants to erase free speech, that he had a snitch line? But, there are some people who really do support Tim Walz.
You have said that Governor Walz has shown up for your community. You are the first out transgender legislator in Minnesota history. What did you mean by that? Expand on it a little bit.
Yes, of course. When we elected 11 new LGBTQ members to the House 2 years
11
ago and created the Queer Caucus, and I started pushing the importance of the trans refuge bill that I carried. He was always right there. He understood that this is a way for us to help community members, to help people who are different.
To help people who are different. No problem with that. Everybody needs to promote the transformers in our government. That's what everything's all about. That's what really matters right now. Not your gas prices, not your grocery prices, not the newcomers coming across in millions, not the fact that there's wars being fought all across the world that we are funding to the tune of billions of dollars. None of that matters. What matters is that our people amongst us, the smallest of percentages of people who are different, need to be thrust into our government. That's what's most important to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And like Megyn Kelly said, don't take our word for it. Go to their website. Look on their website. There's nothing there. There is not a shred of policy other than, we're going to help you remove babies, and, we're going to take care of you transformers. So I'm going to show you this interview that Donald Trump did early this morning, talking to the guys on the set of Fox and Friends. And in addition, what was really important is he took questions live from actual people, something you will never see Kamala Harris do anywhere. She can't talk unscripted. Donald Trump took questions from Lawrence Jones, who was out at the Bike Week rally in Sturgis. And it was pretty much an amazing interview all the way through. It's about 20 minutes. Check it out.
This morning, it just may be the most far left agenda in our country's history on a presidential ticket.
Because the Democratic ticket is now set. Governor Tim Walz's record in Minnesota includes everything from tax-funded health care for illegals to so-called gender-affirming care for minors, just to name a few, as we've been doing this morning.
Joining us now for his first TV interview, his reaction to this ticket that he's fighting against them to have the right to go to the White House and become the 47th president. Let's welcome the 45th president of the United States, GOP presidential nominee, President Donald Trump. Mr. President, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
So,
thank you.
Your reaction to Governor Tim Walz joining Kamala Harris to go against you and J.D. Vance?
I would say my reaction is I can't believe it. I never thought this was going to be the one that was picked. I know him a little bit. I helped him very much during the riots because his house was surrounded by people that were waving an American flag. Doesn't sound like very bad people. And he called me and he was very concerned, very, very concerned that it was going to get out of control. They only had one guard. I guess it was at the mansion or at his house in some form. And he called me. I said, what do you want me to do about it? I was in the White House. He said, if you would put out the word that I'm a good person. And I did. I put out the word. I said, he's a good person. I hope everything's good. And everybody put down their flags and took their flags with them. But they took their American flags and their MAGA flags and they left. It was thousands of people. And that was the first time I said, wow, that's very interesting. And he called me back and he thanked me very much. That's my only thing I ever had to do with him. He's a very, very liberal man, and he's a shocking pick, and I'm thrilled. I could not be more thrilled.
Yeah, I mean, when they selected him, it's really a gift for you because this election is all about the issues, and all of y'all have records. You've been the president. We know where the economy stood. We know what your record is. We know what Kamala Harris's record is, and we know what his record is, and they are extremely progressive. Talk about how you're going to handle this on the campaign trail. Will you just really hone in on how they voted in the past?
Well, I am. I'm going to be doing that. What he wants. If you look at his record with no walls, no security, let everybody in, he's worse than they are. You know, nobody knew how radical left she was, but he's a smarter version of her. If you want to know the truth, he's probably about the same as Bernie Sanders. He's probably more so than Bernie Sanders. She is more so than Bernie Sanders. That's got to be your guide, Bernie Sanders, and that's not a great guide. But there's never been a ticket like this. This is a ticket that would want this country to go communist immediately, if not sooner. We want no security. We want no anything. He's very heavy into transgender. Anything transgender he thinks is great. And he's not where the country is on anything.
Mr. President,
this is a shocking. Let me tell you, this is a shocking pick, and I think it's very insulting to Jewish people, and I think it's very insulting to people that want security. I think it's very insulting to anything having to do with making America great again.
Mr. President, is it true that your team thought for sure that it was going to be Josh Shapiro? Because there was one reporter who was at a J.D. Vance event yesterday, and there were some flyers printed up talking about how J.D. Vance, rather about how Mr. Shapiro was a fraud and corrupt and a lying con man and stuff like that. So it sounds like you were ready to take on him.
That sounds like what you would say.
Well, look, I'm no big fan of Josh Shapiro. I know the state very well. I think we're leading pretty good in that state, but I would have said it would have been a better choice. I would have said others would have better choice. And interesting, just about all of them, except this one, is better than her. She is not nearly as good as the people she was looking at. I know them all in one form or another. And in fact, there was a poll done, and there were some studies done. She's the worst of the group, and she's the one that's leading it. Look at this decision. This is a really bad decision for the country. You know, ultimately, I want the country to have good decisions, because ultimately what we want is for the country to do well. The country can't do well with these two people. They're very similar, and you would have thought she would have reached out and got somebody that's got some different, because her record on security is horrible. She was a border czar, which she doesn't admit it now. You know, the only thing they have going is the media will play off all of the bad things that happened during her term. She was so bad that 5 weeks ago, they wanted to remove her because she was unthinkable to be president. They were going to go with anyone. And then they were afraid that they would offend people if they did that. and all of a sudden, inch by inch, and then she ends up taking over. Now the same press that thought she was the worst vice president in history, which is true, going along with the worst president in history. And he went down after the debate, and there was nothing much they could do with. They tried to come back. Then they brought her in, and everybody said, it'll never be her. She's so bad. She's incompetent. And after they studied it a little bit, they realized it's not going to be so easy to do. So they say, well, look, the press is going to do whatever we want because the press is a rigged deal. The press is the media, outside of you people, of course, but the media is so they're trying to build her up to the next Margaret Thatcher liberal version, and I don't believe it's going to happen. I hear she's hasn't taken one interview. She would never do an interview like this. That I can guarantee with any network. She doesn't do interviews because she can't answer questions. I don't know how she debates. I heard she's sort of a nasty person, but not a good debater. But we'll see, because we'll be debating her, I guess, in the pretty near future. It's going to be announced fairly soon, but we'll be debating her. I'd like to see it on Fox, by the way. I would like to see it. My preference would be Fox, but we have to debate.
Do you have an announcement, Mr. Are you working stuff out behind the scenes? Because we haven't heard about it yet.
No, but I can tell you every network loves me very much right now. They love me very much. I've never been so loved by CBS and by ABC fake news. And by NBC. No, they're all in love with me now, so that, I say yes, because it's up to me, obviously, also.
But on the debate,
the most important thing is we get debate. I think debates are very important, and I think she'll be exposed just like Biden was exposed. Nobody knew Biden was that bad, and then he was exposed during the debate, and they tried to have a series of comebacks after that, and they didn't work out too well, and they viciously overthrew him. I mean, he was overthrown in it, using every trick in the book. They overthrew him. It was pretty amazing, actually, to watch.
I want to come back to the debate. Just to close this up, you're in litigation with George Stephanopoulos on ABC. So there's right, and the judge says, this is good. The suit's going to go forward. So how could you go on ABC, especially if he's going to be one of the moderators?
Well, you could use that as an excuse. I could use that. I've said that. Is there a conflict? And, there might be George Slopadopoulos, and he's got problems, and, they've got problems. But if they're going to have I guess David Muir is going to be the host in that case. You have all the hosts are pretty much named, and you have Brett and Martha, and they're great. And I'd love to see it on Fox, but it takes two to tango.
Well, maybe you get two. Maybe you get two debates.
Look, she doesn't want to debate. She wants to say, I don't want to debate, but I do want to debate. When it came to Biden, I accepted everything. I accepted Jake Tapper. I accepted everything because he didn't want to debate. After I accepted everything, the only thing I said, let's stand up. They wanted to sit down at a desk. I said, that's not going to look so great. So I said, but I accepted everything. And pretty much that's the way I do it right now because I want to debate her. I think it's important for the country that we debate. Now, where it is, I'm all for Fox. I'd like to see it on Fox. I think Fox would do a really good job, but two people have to agree.
All right, Mr. President, let's talk about some of the issues. Mr. Walz, Governor Walz, said this about you, that you don't understand kitchen table issues. Listen.
Donald Trump's not fighting for you or your family. He never sat at that kitchen table like the one I grew up at, wondering how we were going to pay the bills. He sat at his country club in Mar-a-Lago, wondering how he can cut taxes for his rich friends.
Mr. President, what's your response to that?
Well, I think it's just the opposite. I think if you see the vote, those people are all voting for me, the people that he's talking about with the kitchen table. And I was not always sitting at Mar-a-Lago either, but I was sitting at lots of other places. And built an unbelievable business, one of the greatest businesses. I built a business that is phenomenal. That's been really determined now how good it is. And, I could have a very simple life and a very good life and continue to do what I love. I love business and I love creating jobs, and that's what we're doing. We'll be creating jobs at a level that you've never seen before. If you look at our administration, the most successful administration from the economy standpoint there ever was. There's never been any administration that was even close, numbers-wise. And by the way, they had inflation, the level which our country probably has never seen. They say you go back 72 years. Well, I think we probably never have seen inflation like that, and it's killing the same people that he's talking about. It's killing. Inflation has destroyed their administration, and they have no idea what to do about it. It's getting worse, and you had a crash the other day of over 1,000 points. It's a very bad situation that we're going in. We could end up in a depression if these people are reelected.
So let's talk about anti-Semitism. Van Jones had interesting things to say about anti-Semitism. He says this on CNN. It's just because he's a moderate. They're talking about Shapiro not getting the job, or is there some anti-Jewish bias there? He goes, you also have anti-Semitism that's gotten marbled into this party. You can't be for the Palestinians without being anti-Jewish bigot, but there are some anti-Jewish bigots out there, and there's some disquiet now, and there has to be how much that just happened. How much is this pick, I guess he's saying, caving into the anti-Jewishness, anti-Semitism that's marbled into the party? Do you think that's marbled into the party? Because if I could bring in something else that's new, CNN did a poll, and they asked Jewish New Yorkers, if the election was today, who you'd vote for. And for the first time maybe ever since Ronald Reagan, you have a 1-point lead over Kamala Harris among Jewish voters in New York. Your reaction to Van Jones and that poll?
Well, we're going to try and win New York, and that hasn't been done for many, many decades, as you know, but we're trying to win New York, and we're very close to doing it. And probably that's another reason I was somewhat surprised. I think that any Jewish person who votes for a Democrat, or in this case, these people, but who votes for a Democrat, should have their head examined. They are so bad. If you look, they are so bad to Jewish people, what they've done and the way they talk and their policy and everything else, far beyond just what happened, because everyone thought it was going to be Shapiro. It turned out not to be Shapiro. I have very little doubt that it was, not for the reason we're talking about. It was because of the fact that he's Jewish, and they think they're going to offend somebody else. And you wouldn't feel very comfortable if you're in Israel right now with this team. This is the worst team ever assembled for a Jewish person or for Israel, either one. The worst team ever assembled. This is a team that will not be there. And I think I'm going to get a tremendous amount of Jewish votes. I think I was doing fine there, but I think it's a big difference. Traditionally, Jewish people vote for Democrats, but we won last time. We won Miami. We won areas that nobody's ever won before with Jewish people. But when he didn't pick Shapiro, and I don't think Shapiro was the second best person or the third. I think there were other people better than him. I know them all. And, but I was shocked when it came down to the final two that he didn't pick Shapiro. I was very surprised.
Mr. President, here's another soundbite of the current vice president talking about, on her watch with Joe Biden, things are just absolutely great, right? Watch.
In Pennsylvania, we fight for a future with affordable housing, affordable health care, affordable child care, paid leave. We fight for a future where we bring down prices that are still too high and lower the cost of living for America's families.
Okay, so there, she is co-pilot to Joe Biden. So while inflation and prices have been through the roof during their administration, now she's trying to put on a happy face about how we're going to turn it all around. Mr. President, I'm sure you've seen over the last week or so, her team has been leaking to the New York Times. All those things we used to stand for, we're not for them anymore because we've adopted all new policies. That's probably one of the reasons why she has not appeared on television. And so she's trying to appear more moderate to appeal to people in the middle, and she's getting away with it. The honeymoon for Kamala Harris, it must drive you crazy because it's still going on.
Yeah. It does, and there's only one thing, because she's just talking about Pennsylvania. No fracking. That means your energy prices are going to go through the roof, but that means Pennsylvania is going to lose 500,000 jobs. More important than the 500,000 jobs, they're going to lose tremendous streams of money. She wants no fracking, and she wants no fracking. She's trying to say now that she wants, she's gone through every single thing that was a horror show, and she disavows it now. She disavows the no fracking. If she does no fracking, and she will 100% do it. One thing I've learned about politicians, and you people knew it maybe before me, but I've known it for a long time, their first thought is the thought that they end up doing. She's for no fracking. She's for defund the police. She was the original defunder of the police. She was the original no cash bail, cashless bail, which has caused havoc. And look at how she's destroyed San Francisco. She started it out as the DA in San Francisco with policies that were so bad. It's a crime-ridden place. It went to the greatest city in America. It's a crime-ridden place right now. It's not livable. You can't even live there. And then she went to Attorney General. She's destroyed California. Her and Gavin Newsom have absolutely destroyed California. And what a shame. What a beautiful place it was. But it's not beautiful anymore. She cannot get away, because if she does this to America, every one of us are going to either be leaving or we're going to be living like dogs. Our whole country, our whole system is going to collapse. Even the talk about her has driven the stock market down.
Yeah.
When the stock market goes down, when you see it go down, that's because she gets a decent poll number. She gets bounces at a poll, the market goes down. The stock market will collapse like in 1929 if they're elected.
We know people are pulling a lot of their money out. If you looked at your 401k on Monday, you were in tears. You put on social media, Trump cash versus Kamala crash. And analysts are warning, even though there was a turnaround yesterday, the rebound doesn't mean the market meltdown is over. And when we go out to these diners, Mr. President, this is the number one issue: the economy, inflation, how it's affecting us. People can't retire right now because they're losing their money. The other issue is the border. And you have Tim Walz, who said that if you build this wall that's 25 feet, he wants a ladder factory where he sells ladders or gives ladders to the illegal immigrants that are 30 feet so they can climb the wall. He wants to pay for illegals' health care, just like Kamala Harris does, their tuition, and give them driver's license. He actually signed that into legislation in his state. And he supports to make Minnesota a sanctuary state. So it is now. Talk about the economy, what you're going to do for the economy, and what you're going to do for the border.
The first thing we're going to do is we're going to drill, baby, drill. And then number two, and I can do lots of things on the first day. It's not one thing or two things or four things. We're going to do lots of things on the first day. But we're going to close up the border. We're going to let people come in, but they have to come in legally. I built 571 miles of wall. We built a lot, much more than I said I was going to build. I was then going to add 200. We were 200 miles. We were 300. Literally, we were just right there. We could have had another 200, almost 300 miles of wall, and they decided not to put it up. I had it made,
paid for it,
and they sold it. Brian, they sold it for nothing. They sold it for 5% of the cost. It's very expensive. That wall is exactly what Border Patrol wanted. Wasn't my preference. I had a different wall. I had the most gorgeous wall you've ever seen, but they had to have steel, concrete, and rebar. And that's what it is. Inside that steel is concrete. Inside that is rebar. They needed a certain wall, high tech. It's very high tech. It's all wired for cameras, for everything. I put it up. They sold it for 5% of the cost of building it, and all they had to do is flip it. All they had to do is, it was all in place. We would have had 200 miles additionally in. The wall would have been unbelievable. And by the way, walls work. You've heard me say two things work. Everything's obsolete, but two things work: walls and wheels. They'll never change. Walls and wheels. Everything else is obsolete.
Running for vice president now.
Well, Mr. President, we know you dodged an assassination attempt, and we still look at the footage and can't believe, and we're so thankful. The whole country is, even if they're voting for you or not. But then there's this story about Asif Merchant. He's 46 years old. He's in New York City. He's got Pakistani family and a Tehran family. It looks like he was trying to meet with a hitman. Thankfully, the FBI had infiltrated to assassinate you. Your thoughts about this devious plot?
Well, I'll tell you this. I'm in a very dangerous business. Being president is a dangerous thing. And And especially when you're an active president, when you're somebody that wants to make our country secure, when you want to build a strong military. I rebuilt our entire military. I mean, we gave a lot of it away to Afghanistan, which is like shocking. That was, by the way, the Afghanistan, when we showed that gross incompetence in Afghanistan, I was getting out, but we were getting out with tremendous dignity and strength. We were the boss. We were going to keep Bagram. If you remember, we were going to keep Bagram because it's literally 1 hour from where China makes its nuclear weapons. They gave Bagram, and China has now assumed control of Bagram, and nobody wants to tell you that. We were going to keep Bagram. But the Afghanistan move was so bad. I think it was the lowest point in the history of our country. It was an embarrassment. The worst time in the history of our country in terms of that. And we gave that up. It was like the most horrible thing. And that gave Putin the feeling that, wow, these people are incompetent. I can go into Ukraine. And frankly, as you know, under me, Iran was broke. There was no Hamas threat. There was no Hezbollah
and Mr.
threat.
President, also, Kamala Harris was the last one in the room when Joe Biden signed off on that. Meanwhile, one of your favorite people, Lawrence Jones, is live in Sturgis. Lawrence, take it away. You have some people that have some questions for you.
I love that.
Mr. President, how you doing,
Lawrence?
Mr. President? We're live from Sturgis. Say hello to So the people have some questions for you, Mr. President. I want to bring in Brett. He was talking about he has his daughter, his grandchildren now living with him, and you're concerned about the economy. What is your question for the former president?
So, Mr. President, I appreciate you giving our time here. One of the big concerns is what are you going to do about bringing down the rent and things like that from the economy? Because out of 8 children that I'm a father and a stepfather to, 5 of them are struggling, and I'm giving them part of my income on a regular basis. How are you going to make the economy not just the food and electricity, but bring down the rent prices, the housing prices, so that these kids can survive without their parents' help?
Such a good question, Mr. President.
You're right. I hear it very well. And I tell you, first of all, I love the people that you're with. I know that I must have at least 99, perhaps 100% of all of them. And I think they're incredible. We are going to drill, baby, drill. We're going to bring down the cost of energy. Energy is what caused the worst inflation, I think, in the history of our country. Food prices are up 50%, sometimes more. You look at bacon. Bacon is quadrupled. You can't order bacon. You can't order anything. We're living horribly. We have the worst inflation we've probably ever had in our country, and it started because of energy. We're going to drill, baby, drill, and then we're going to have China and all of these countries that were treating us good when I was there toward that. I mean, it took me a long time to get them to behave properly. All of these countries are going to, again, stop. Like 4 years ago, I could ask you, you were in great shape. You had low energy costs. You had low food costs. Everything was good. You could buy a house. You had low interest rates, 2% interest rates. You had gasoline at $1.87. Now it's $5. And by the way, going up very substantially. But you had gasoline at $1.87 a gallon. Nobody talks about that anymore. Nobody even can believe it's going to happen. It's going to happen again. We've got to get the energy prices down, and everything else is going to be tumbling down with it, the prices, because what Biden has done to the economy is so horrible, and what he's done to inflation in our country is just very destructive.
Mr. President, it's the perfect segue. It's the perfect transition, Mr. President, because I met Linda at the airport yesterday, and when I talked to her and I said, what is the number one concern? She's concerned about Kamala Harris and her energy policy. What is your question for the former president?
Mr. President, what can we do to achieve a permanent, long-term energy solution to keep us energy independent?
Such a great question. Mr. President?
It's a great question. It's such an important question. And look, we're run by people that are not smart people, okay? Not smart people. We have more liquid gold, you've heard me say this a million times, under our feet than any other country. Russia, Saudi Arabia, you can add them all up. We have more than anybody. We were energy independent 4 years ago, and now we're begging Venezuela for oil. Venezuela, they don't even have oil. They have tar. You have to take tar, and you have to refine it. It's a terrible process. We have the best, the most beautiful, the best, highest quality oil soil under our feet. Texas and numerous other places. We have the best stuff. We don't use it because Biden he talks about the environment. You know, it's amazing. They talk about the environment, and yet we refine the Venezuelan tar. Okay, we refine it, and it goes up into our air. It's done in Houston, the only plant that can do it. We are going to bring the energy costs down. Everything else is going to be tumbling, and we don't need energy from any other country. We have to fill up the strategic reserves again. It's down. It's the lowest number it's ever been. He's using the strategic reserves, which is meant for military, which is meant for war and very important things. He's using it to try and keep gasoline prices down, and we can't allow that to happen. We have to fill up the strategic. I was filling that up at levels that they've never seen before. We have to fill up the strategic reserves immediately. We can't let people use that to fill the car. We will have the energy prices to a point where they're as low or lower than they were 4 years ago. But remember, I had you down to $1.87 a gallon, and that was beautiful. They were good times. Thank you.
Mr. President, it was a good time. I drive a big truck, so I remember that. Got one last question for you. A lot of folks here are talking about Social Security, and this gentleman has a question on that point.
Yeah, Mr. President, a lot of seniors, their only income is Social Security. Last year, they had adjustable income of 1.2%. Meanwhile, inflation was probably 7% or higher. How about making it mandatory, whatever inflation is, that would be the income for the Social Security instead of this 1.2% pathetic adjustment?
Mr. President?
I got it. It's a great question. We can do a lot of things to help the people. People on Social Security are being killed. And one of the things I'm doing is no tax for seniors on Social Security, and I'll get it done quickly. No tax for seniors on Social Security. And for all your waiters and waitresses and everybody else out there, drivers, we're not going to have any tax on tips. No tax on tips. Remember that. No tax on tips. But we're going to have no tax for seniors on Social Security. And they are ruining, they're going to destroy Social Security because millions of people are coming onto our country and they're putting them on Social Security. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on all of our things. They're destroying it. They are destroying Social Security. We're going to make, and remember, I was there for 4 years. I didn't raise the age. They wanted to raise the age. They wanted lots of things. I said, no way. We left Social Security the way it was. Now we're doing no tax for seniors. You deserve that. We have plenty of other things. I told you about liquid gold. Yeah. We have more than anybody else. We don't have to do that. We don't have to hurt people on Social Security. So we are going to do no tax for seniors on Social Security, and also no tax on tips for the waiters that are standing right next to you.
So, Mr. President, I'm going to send it back to the couch, but the people here are going to kill me if I don't ask you. They want to know, will President Trump be at the next Sturgis right here to be with the people?
Are you ready? I love Sturgis. I love it. I love it, and I love that state. And that state, we win by so much. The answer is absolutely yes. I will be there. Absolutely yes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. President. Back to the couch.
That is exactly what they wanted to hear. Lawrence and Sturgis, very nicely done. And Mr. President, thank you very much for taking a half an hour to chat with us today.
Well, thank you. It was great fun. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Okay. All right, we did invite Kamala Harris on our show. We haven't heard back. We haven't received a response from her, but she's welcome anytime. Did she text you, Brian?
No.
Does she have your number?
Who knows?
Because when she called Tim Walz yesterday, he didn't pick up.
Right, yeah. This is a props.
When she calls you, she'll be on camera.
Right. Absolutely. Okay.
So welcome to Hour 3 of Fox and Friends. It's 8 o'clock here in New York City. And, of course, this...